on part 2, and it's about exploitation. It's about power dynamics. It's about employing hundreds of thousands of people for pennies to sift through some of the most grotesque, ugly, violent, sexual content that's ever been created by humanity, to feed the language models, to make them safe, to make them child friendly, to make them what you use every day today. Jeremy, how do you feel reading some of the chapters in here? Venezuela, Kenya, Colombia.
Yeah, with that, let's just make sure we kind of stay organized a little bit. But I definitely want to jump to that because it's the one thing that stuck out to me and stayed in my brain, man. It was like I read that chapter. Was that chapter 8?
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9, disaster capitalism, right? Chapter 9, I read that over the weekend. I was sitting on my porch, normally, great setting, reading, enjoying the outside, and I was very troubled, very disturbed by it's almost like we were talking a little bit. It's almost like when you watch a gnarly horror movie and your brain's scrambled and you feel very weird and uncomfortable and like unsettled and ungrounded. That's the way I walked away from that chapter. I still haven't really shaken it off, but I shook off like what I had earlier. But man, like this has been happening for years though. This is not AI specific. This is like this has been happening for a while.
Oh, yeah, the exploitation of poverty-stricken peoples is not new. And yeah, you're right. It's chapter 9. We get ahead. But I think that the big part of part 2 of this book is that. I mean, in chapters 6, 7, 8, we get more of the same, really, the ascension, the rise to power of Sam Altman and OpenAI, the scale. We get the commercial AI applications. We get ChatGPT 3, that API, how that worked. We get the paranoia of OpenAI, the lockdown mentality. They were fearful of their model weights being stolen. There's a lot of paranoia on the rise up. So we can go through that first for sure.
Yeah, but the mechanics of the rise, the rule of the game of the rise are to have the most compute, do it the fastest, push product out the quickest, no matter the cost. That's the race.
Competitive advantage. Stay ahead at all cost. Yeah.
Damn the torpedoes, right?
Damn it all to hell.
Damn it all to Mark is feeling very spicy today. We're rolling into this, but I think there's a reason for the spice. So what chapter are we starting with, Mark? What do you want to roll with?
Let's start with Ascension. Let's just go through the kind of the philosophy to 10x everything and how. I've got a criticism just before we start with.
For me or the book?
For the book.
Okay, I'm open to it too. How you doing in the comments, guys? Hit us up.
If you're in the comments, maybe you agree with this critique, maybe you don't. It's not a very important critique. It just makes life at book club more difficult to plan these discussions because the timeline jumps all over the place. It doesn't follow a coherent timeline from 2016. It doesn't year by year, month by month. It jumps around. Not only from the year, so sometimes 2021, 2022, it goes back to the beginning, then it goes to lockdown, then it goes to 2024. And it also jumps between models of OpenAI. It's GPT-3, GPT-4, GPT-1. And so it's quite difficult to keep track of a logical timeline for the show. That's my critique. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I definitely sensed it bouncing back and forth. And when I'm in one chapter, it bounces back to stuff from a previous chapter and I'll actually add my notes to that previous chapter. And there's a little bit of jumping back and forth. I didn't find it terribly jarring, but it definitely wasn't.
Not jarring for the reading experience, and more for Hollywood movies that jump around, but just for outlining the show, like what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Pure logistically planning. Yeah.
I mean, you got to read 120 pages. And
I can't believe Karen Howe didn't structure her book based on how we were going to run through it in book club. That's very disappointing. All right. So sentence that jumped out at me, chapter 6, Ascension, quote from Sam Altman: "We really built an empire." All right, so that's that kind of seeds the thing. In 2019, his goal was to be number one at a few things: technical results,
Ah,
compute.
but he was speaking about YC Combinator when he said that.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
Let me go back.
like because that was the first mention. Like with that YC Combinator, he had created an empire. I'm pretty sure that that quote was referring to that. Anyone in the
Okay,
chat, if you can confirm or deny, please.
I stand corrected.
Well, don't correct yourself too soon.
Yeah. Let's see. Already pretty. Oh, okay, he's definitely referring to YC in that. YC in that. But definitely an empire mindset, dare we say.
Well, yeah, maybe it's even more telling that he was referring to empires
Yeah.
for YC Combinator, and we'll get to that in a minute. There's lots of links, always links. So YC Combinator, when we get to the exploitation of the workers in Venezuela and Kenya, that is all around a third party. I don't know how would you call those companies, like outsourcing of work that Scale AI, which was founded by Alexander Wang, who was a YC Combinator startup and lived with Sam Altman during lockdown for a couple of months. But
Yep. Well, in chapter in Ascension, I wrote a bunch of notes here in the side as we dove into this, and I think it was after I read it. So in the race to the top, powered by a fear of losing, the race makes someone more susceptible to compromising values. If you stick to your guns, someone beats you, becomes a validated shortcut, and then gets more money, gets more GPUs, gets more favors. Can you do the right thing in scale wars? Is it possible? And I kind of had thought experiment there, right? And the flip side of that, you have safety being viewed as product prevention, right? My years in sales, we used to always call like the financial department or the credit department sales prevention, right? Because you'd sell something and then hey, can they finance it, right? But like it's kind of the thing, and anything that prevents 10x in this case is kind of bad. Anything that gets in the way of 10x or bust, don't at all costs kind of thing. So that's kind of the root of this, and it keeps coming back to the rules of this game that they're playing are not for humanity. In a way.
Safety and ethics being a product blocker is just a sad state of affairs. But yeah, you're right.
Well, there's a reference and I think we'll get to this in the later chapters, but there's a reference into when they were restructuring, kind of when the Amadei siblings divorced out and they were restructuring their research arm. One of their goals, and stated in the research paper, was to understand neural networks and deep learning so we could figure out how to use the tools we have, or figure out what the tools we have can do. So you're building and building and building and building. Oh shit, what can these things do, right?
Your question, you said, can you scale indefinitely and have the good of humanity at heart at the same time? No, of course you can't. There's a very interesting quote that Sam Altman, he paints the, you get the reindeer waterfall quotes on your wall. You'd put these stupid, redundant, motivational quotes on your wall. You go to, and he's got this quote by Hyman Rickover, an admiral in the US Navy. It's always an admiral in the US Navy with these people. They think they're doing something, protecting, I don't know, the people. And the quote, blah, 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 load of the future of the human race, blah, blah, blah. And Sam Altman wrote below this, building AGI that benefits humanity is perhaps the most important project in the world. We must put the mission ahead of any individual preferences. Low stakes things should be low drama, so we can save our high drama capacity for high stakes things. And it stinks because it's just a massive juxtaposition with what the reality turns out to be. It's like he's trying to convince himself with redundant quotes that what he is doing is for the good of humanity, and yet we see it that it's just simply not the case, is it? If it was for the good of humanity, they would have guardrails in place before. They wouldn't react after somebody kills themselves because they use that technology. Oh, we got that wrong. We'll have to sort that out after the event.
Oh, but Mark, wait. So
makes me so angry.
When GPT, I think it was GPT-2 first came out, they only released the 8% version. So that was their safety protocol. They only released the 8% version. Hey, friends and neighbors in the chat, I want you to rate Mark's spiciness today. From 0 is bland as hell, 10 is fire shooting out of your face. So
last week, Jeremy, you said I was wishy-washy, and I thought, right, no more wishy-washy.
Way to take a stance, Mark. Way to take a stance. So a couple other things noted in here, just kind of confirming what I call the rules of the game in this race. The idea is, make money to do more research, not do more research to make more money. I think that was a paraphrase of a Walt Disney quote in some form or fashion. I'm like, okay, yeah, you bring Steamboat Mickey into the house and maybe it seems more palatable, I guess, or I don't know. What did you think of the simple little minus to plus mistake? I think it was GPT. Was that GPT-2 maybe? Yeah, it was GPT-2.
Remind me.
So in one of the processes, one of the update processes that the researcher put in place, and remember, guys, like these are mathematical machines predicting the next word in the sentence. Let's just keep coming back to that. So in the programming of this mathematical machine designed to predict the next word in a sentence, the researcher or the someone pushing the update actually had a minus sign flipped to a plus sign in whatever code he put in, and basically all the output was like lewd and offensive and all of that. And imagine just like a flip of a certain switch or missing of it, talk about not having your I's dotted and your T's crossed. That turned into a bit of a shit show, didn't it?
Did that person get a pay reward or did they lose their job?
That's a fair question. It could be looked at both, especially if you're looking at it coming from the product prevention department or the grow at all cost department. Ben, what's up, dude? It's been a long time. Great to see you in the chat. Ben gives you an 8 spicy, so I feel that's good.
Oh, so room for more.
I feel that's good. If you need to throttle up, we can.
Wait till we get to chapter 9, Ben. That's all I say.
All right. So what else? We're still in chapter 6. We need to kind of keep this thing moving and grooving. Again, more references to the Manhattan Project sprinkled in here. There's a lot of folks that have different positions on this. As AI is akin to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, right? The growth of nuclear weapons. We talked about the Atoms for Peace thing back in the Eisenhower days, and having that awareness of this as a tool. Other people view this as hey, this is going to be a next version of how people interact with the internet, simplifying it. But Manhattan Project.
After a few guests, we've had a kind of lean to the latter of those at the moment. Just for the listeners, there was a brief explanation of what was actually happening at OpenAI. You had the GP3 API. There was a bit of the team Emodi weren't ready to release it, but Microsoft were pushing on them to get it out there, start commercializing it. That was the start of the Emodi siblings kind of like, okay, we're going to go off, start Anthropic. That's what happened. They left. You also had and again, another serendipitous or accident was the scraping of Reddit, which gave them all the coding capability that they hadn't really been planning on. It was an afterthought. It was what do you call it? Like an accident because of the data they were scraping off Reddit and GitHub, where they had all these coding. So there was actually some interesting emails from people in OpenAI. Oh, maybe we should pay some of these people for all of this information that we're stealing from Reddit and GitHub. And maybe
is it
Microsoft,
plagiarism? Is it plagiarism? I don't know. Let's keep it rolling, right?
What was the thing about maybe Microsoft can pay them after the event, and Microsoft gave 10 pence to charity or something?
Yeah, check the box. Well, here, listen. Let's put our corporate hats on for a minute.
Yes.
Here. it's easy to be the independent guys on the outside going, man, you guys aren't doing the world right? But you also, if you're scaling a company and you have the resources, you tied your boat to Microsoft, a bunch of
Of course,
money,
yeah.
a bunch of compute. Hey, this if the rules of the road, if the rules of this game we're playing are scale at all costs, you got Microsoft, you got access to the biggest amount of chips, compute, the whole nine yards. But then with that
Well, yeah, that's all. Yeah,
billion dollar
just don't
investment,
tell us that
well, no,
humanity is at the center. Yeah, but
there you go.
totally. With my
That's
corporate hat, I agree with you completely.
because Microsoft's like, yo, I gave you all this stuff. What are you giving us? And hey, tapping my foot, yo, when's this return coming? So, but again, like you said, outward facing, we're saying, hey, we're designing something that's going to benefit all of humanity. Yeah, are you really, or are you trying to, you can't do both. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
very difficult. If you do both, something's gonna fail.
Well, and of course,
Um,
if Microsoft are dangling another 2 billion in front of them, which they were for the API to be a success, so of course, yeah, from a corporate perspective, onwards,
Yep.
scale.
Yeah. A couple other things in 6, and then we'll move on to 7. This is where they start talking about the API for GPT-3, which is like, all right, let's get this thing out the door. Let's get as many people using it. The more people that use it, it creates this flywheel benefit for us. So let's push that product out there. Oh, P.S. The initial live version with this API didn't have any content moderation filtering. So hey, we're still in the race. We're abiding by the rules of the race, not the rules for benefit of humanity, but the rules of scale. So you mentioned code generation. All right. So this is really interesting. I think I pulled this. This is where the chapters bounce back and forth. But
Yeah.
so code, this is really interesting. So code in and of itself, and there's a quote from the book, is the most obvious and largest source that presents encoded structured patterns of logic. So I would almost argue that code is more valuable than text, maybe in a way, because code teaches something how to move through a logical process to make a decision, right? So that's this big aha moment. And Microsoft's like, yo, hey, Sam, we've got GitHub. There's like billions of lines of code. Why don't you grab this stuff? Oh, wait. But isn't that a free online community, or an online community that people are doing it for the benefit of humanity and sharing their code to help other people code and create model? Oh, damn it. Just grab it and we can get really smart really fast. Scale at all costs, right? Let's see. What'd you think of page 155, the how to destabilize an organization? That felt
So I'll tell you a little. Let me just get the right window open. So that was Peter Willinder. He was originally in robotics for OpenAI. Eventually, he became the VP of product, and he was talking about the internal discussions that were going on. I think this was maybe around summer 2020. I'm not sure. Again, it jumps around, but he says it was like the US intelligence manual on non-violent sabotage, where they were just using, talk as much as you can, ask questions that don't make any sense, refuse to understand any of the logic, refuse to understand any of the question. It was just kind of this. Again, we spoke about it last week, the petulance, the immature nature of this, the school ground one-upmanship. But there's actually a Jocko podcast where Jocko, I don't know if you're familiar with the Jocko podcast, he's the ex-military guy, he speaks to a lot of veterans, but he has one episode, it's like 4 hours long, and he goes through that manual point by point, and it's fascinating because he uses it, the outset of it is a military manual, but he goes, okay, you're in your job, you don't like your job, do this, and he goes through it point by point, and it's really, really fascinating. So I recommend you and listeners find that out if you can, because it's a very interesting manual.
Wow, that's a good tie-in, man. That's a good
Yeah.
nugget. That's a good nugget for book club. I never would have thought of
That's
that.
my
Never would
job.
have thought. Never would have thought Jocko Willink and the Empire of AI.
Yeah, but okay, just on that note, we're talking about an empire, military. A lot of these founders, a lot of these very famous CEOs and businessmen that we label as saints, they quote from military leaders, don't they? I mean, obviously, The Art of War plays a big role in everything, which is a military book that people use for business. But they've always quoted these, and I'm sorry, Jeremy, mostly American generals, as if it's a carte blanche to do what they want. So there is a tie-in, I think, between big business and the military, which is why the Jocko podcast can be pretty interesting.
Well, what's one aspect of the military is there's a mission at the top, and there are people in between the top and the very bottom guy that's participating in a very small aspect of that mission to cascade down and influence and rally everybody in lockstep towards that mission. So what does a company do? Very similar kind of thing. I mean, the outputs of a military campaign versus growing a company. I'm not saying, the importance of one over another, but I'm saying the mechanics are likely pretty similar, which is why they're pulling from that stuff. Okay. Okay. So
Let's get serious, Jeremy.
Yeah, so we go into chapter 7, science and captivity. This is where we start talking about carbon footprints of training models, and Emma Struble kind of came out with a kind of a reference that one model's training impact is the equivalent of nearly 5,000 flights from New York to San Francisco. Kind of the first time maybe someone started putting their hands up and going, "Yo, like." What's this stuff doing to the environment? I know it talks about a lot of compute. P.S. If you guys want to hear a really good episode about what AI is doing to the environment, Mark, tell them about enabled emissions.
I can't go there, Jeremy. If my spice is 8, if I go there, my spice will be 25. Yeah. Okay, I will. Day before yesterday, we spoke to 2 whistleblowers from Microsoft who had...
Not whistleblowers. They didn't like that term. That term.
Yeah, well, we'll use it for the sake of this. And after 10 years in the sustainability departments of Microsoft, they realized that, in fact, big tech is in bed with big oil, using their technology to exacerbate the search and exploitation. No, it's not the right word. Extraction of fossil fuels to a very, very scary degree. It puts the data center carbon footprint in the shade. Check it out.
It really does. I didn't know it, and I'm pretty deep in data center land. Ben, nice seeing a couple of these great comments. Talking about this concept of mission and individual, and coupled with extreme pressure. There's a bit of God complex that comes out in that. You're absolutely right.
Oh yeah, definitely like some God complex going on for sure. Hero complex.
All right.
Page 165.
Ooh, what you got on 165?
So if anyone in the chat has read on the dangers of stochastic parrots, can language models be too big? This was kind of the paper that set the ball rolling in terms of what could be the harmful effects of all of this. In short, it outlines 4 key warnings. As you mentioned, the energy impact, number 1. Second, the demand for data was growing so vast that companies were scraping whatever they could find on the internet, inadvertently capturing more toxic and abusive language as well as subtler racist and sexist references. Third, because such vast data sets were difficult to audit and scrutinize, it was extremely challenging to verify what was actually in them, making it harder to eradicate toxicity. So it's kind of this flywheel of toxicity, making it worse and worse. And we're also starting to screw up the environment. And finally, the model outputs were getting so good that people could easily mistake its statistically calculated outputs as language with real meaning and intent. This would make people prone not only to believing the text to be factual information, but also to consider the model a competent advisor, a trustworthy confidant, and perhaps even something sentient.
And that's been a theme we've been talking about for months and maybe years. Like, yeah. Maybe we ought to do I thought about it'd be interesting to do a pocket edition on the stochastic parrots, but the breakdown in the book was so great on the points of it. But after and how do you pronounce Timnit? How do you pronounce the last name?
Of who? Sorry.
Of Timnit, one of the authors.
Yeah, I've written that down.
Yeah, anyway, these the two authors of this one's more of a
Jibru,
linguistics.
yeah, Jibru. We spoke
Jibru.
about her last week.
Yeah, so she was within Google, and assembling a research team to put this paper out. Partnered with a linguistics professor, outlining all of these different things, getting ready as part of what companies do: release research, put it out there, take stances, and Google ended up pulling the paper and not allowing her to publish it, leading to a lot of discord. And yeah, that's kind of silencing the things that need to be said.
But she stood her ground, didn't she? And she fought and she fought, and eventually, the paper got published.
Yes, not tied in with Google though, outside, right?
No.
A version of it.
Yeah. And just on that, so there's just a quote here. OpenAI had simply admitted in its research paper describing the model that GPT-3 did indeed entrench stereotypes related to gender, race, and religion, but the measures for mitigating them would have to be the subject of future research. And again, we see this after the event, after the fuck up, after the toxicity, after everything that we're trying to eradicate. They go, oh, we'll sort that out later. Or, God, we should have sorted that out before.
Well,
Where's
hey,
the
there's
foresight? Where was the foresight? Where was it?
Mark, rules of the game. There's no time for that. We're buying GPUs. We're throwing.
But humanity, Jeremy, humanity.
We're throwing as much data, no matter how shitty, how toxic, or whatever. It's data. We're chucking it in this model because more data, more chips gets us where we want to go. And you know what?
Here's a military collateral damage, Jeremy. This is maybe their thought pattern. If they read enough military, not propaganda, but whatever, then eventually, collateral damage. Yes, some people have to suffer because we're saving humanity.
Yep.
God complex.
So the tail end of this chapter, there's some reference of I thought this was pretty interesting. Karen Howe references, big AI going big tobacco. So hey, these cigarettes are great for you, dude. It's all good. We're not going to publish anything about that they'll kill you in the next 8 to 10 years. But now it's all good because it looks really cool. Check out our ads. We're great. So
this is the Aaron Brockovich, the beginnings of the Aaron Brockovich movement against big tobacco. Then against big AI.
Yep. So conveniently after. And this is where it bumps around because we're going from GPT-3 to now they're referencing ChatGPT. Right around ChatGPT timeframe, guess what OpenAI did? According to the book, according to Karen's research.
What did they do, Jeremy?
They stopped openly publishing research. So remember a long time ago we heard
the drawbridge.
Yeah, lock it down, boys, lock it down. Listen, here's remember earlier on it was like, hey, if someone else gets where we all want to go before we do, hey, we'll all hug up, we'll all make this thing happen, let's all do it together. But no, like you said, the drawbridge is closing. But guess what?
It's classic Godfather. The Corleones, right, lock it down. I don't want the family speaking to anybody. I don't want anybody outside the family coming into this room. I want no discussions beyond the Corleones. That is it. Lock it down.
How's your Godfather character map looking these days?
It's got a lot of blood on it. There's a lot of victims.
So Ben, great comments you're throwing in here. So he says that's what happened to Elon. Tesla was saving humanity, so everything else is excused. There's a piece of this puzzle that we could maybe even sprinkle back to, and I don't want to get too political, and I'm just stating kind of what what the history of this stuff lays out. So the war on terror, right, back in the day, at all costs, we got to go hunt people down, and we need access to all of your information. And when there's a big issue, we trade security for the fear balance or the lack of fear balance, right? So there's a lot of parallels Ben, great insight. Keep it coming, dude. And if you have any questions if you're reading the book with us, questions that are sparking your mind that you want to riff on, pop them in the chat. All right. So while they stopped openly publishing research, Stanford has a transparency tracker, which I think that's pretty cool. I didn't know about that. So that's a good little tool to see who's doing what. But the dawn of commerce, Mark, this is post Amadei divorce, new research direction. Guess what? We want to have an aligned AI system with vastly more capabilities or vastly more capable. How do you do that? You're still chasing
I would say there's 3 steps to that.
Okay.
I would say there's 3 steps. First, scaling GPT-3 by another 10x using a new supercomputer from Microsoft, arriving in the 3rd quarter with 18,000 NVIDIA A100s, the newest, most powerful GPUs then in existence. I think you need that first, then maybe doing more research to increase by 25x OpenAI's compute efficiency. And third, I would say, would be improving the quantity and quality of training data.
Yeah.
Quality of training data, in part by tapping into user data and shifting the model towards the best parts of the data distribution with reinforcement learning from human feedback.
And let's deploy as many models as possible as products. Flywheel. So here
They were really getting the hang of it by this point, weren't they? They were like, yeah,
so.
we've got this. There was a bit at the beginning, 2016, 2017. They weren't sure, Microsoft maybe going to invest $1 billion, but by this point, they're flying.
So aligned AI system. I mean, we talk a lot about AI alignment, with human and humanity kind of stuff. It's hard to do when you're still operating in the race to scale. Like they're diametrically opposed, right? I do agree from a technical standpoint that
after
investing billions in compute, maybe you can look at how to get them a little bit more efficient, right?
For sure.
Use what you got a little bit better, but the quality of training. This is when we start bringing in the RLHF, reinforced learning, human feedback stuff that we'll continue to talk about. Quote, one of the things in the research initiative, the new, hey, we're going to organize now that Dario Amadei is left, we're going to reorganize. One of the goals, Mark, of my new research organization, we're going to study the science of deep learning a little bit better so we can understand how what we're building works. Let's do that. Does that sound like a good initiative? Can we catch up to the train?
It sounds like something I might have done a few years before that particular moment in time, but hey, I'm not them. So I did like this quote. I use your thing. Quote: scaling multimodal models, meanwhile, could potentially quicken the pace of improvements even further. With enough breakthroughs, the document said, with remarkable definitiveness, we might actually reach AGI. And it is, models feed into models. It quickens the process. So from
I have
a
a
business
question.
Perspective, again, makes sense.
I have a question. What's AGI?
That depends, doesn't it, Jeremy, on whose definition of AGI. It's like moving the goalposts. It's this one week, it's this the next week. It seems to be becoming more attainable the more the definition is weakened. So I don't know. AGI, AI which can do essentially everything that we do to a higher level.
Yeah, I asked that a little sarcastically because the definition, like you said, is all over the place. But so we talked about a little bit of this research initiative, the scale, that sort of thing. The secret sauce, this is a loosely captured quote, the secret sauce of OpenAI can be written on a grain of rice. One OpenAI researcher said a long time ago, and then there was like a reference to scale. So again, back to the rules of the road. Let's see. I thought this was interesting. Heidi Klopf, I think, had a reference in here about there's more testing that goes into calculators. Like when you make a calculator and you put it out, there's more software testing in a calculator than what OpenAI was doing. That caught me as like, yo,
Yeah, that caught me as well. But I think that's
is
the
that clickbait?
dramatic.
Is that
It's
clickbait?
clickbait. It's clickbait, isn't it? It's not true. They're using that. It's to just to yeah, clickbait. It's not true. Surely it's not true. I didn't believe it.
All right. So let's dive into the muck of this last chapter, man. I again like how disturbed I felt reading through this and what is kind of quantified or qualified rather by this industry as, two words that seem very non-threatening. Oh, data annotation. We're doing data annotation. Hey, I'm going to hire a bunch of people. We're going to do some data annotation. Oh, sounds kind of official. Database management sounds kind of similar, right? But what this actually is looking at content, whether it's text, video, pictures, whatever it is, and labeling that content. So
most of this is written though. They don't get into the video yet, which it's mostly written content for this.
For this, so this was written content. All of it was written content.
Yeah, because didn't they? Was it Scale AI that they mentioned that basically everybody in Venezuela and Colombia and Kenya was so disturbed by what they'd done with the written content that the idea of then doing that with video. But I guess you're right. I guess they did eventually as well.
Yeah. So imagine so one guy, there was a case study of a guy in here. I definitely want to reference his name because I think it's important.
Well, there's a few guys, isn't there? There's that Moffat Okinyi and Oscarina Veronica Fuentes Anaya from Colombia as well.
Yeah, so the one from Kenya, what was that? What was his name?
Moffat Okinyi.
Okay, so what he had to do on a daily basis is review 15,000 pieces of per month. 15,000 pieces of explicit content per month. I'm gonna let that sink in for a bit. Like what does that do to your mind? Like that was the most disturbing thing to me was like what reviewing that kind of thing, even if it's text based, does to your mind over time. And for him, it pulled him away from his family. It pulled him away from his wife. It pulled him away from a lot of things because I don't think many people could do that and come out on the other side unscathed. And by the way, they were getting paid, pennies on the dollar to do some of this really dark work that
it wasn't just explicit content. It was the most explicit content that a human being could create, the most nefarious, evil human beings. It's talking about parents raping their children. It's about children being raped by animals. It's about the most grotesque things the human imagination come up with, and on it every day, thousands upon thousands. And they mentioned his marriage breaks down and his wife leaves him because he becomes so inside himself that he just can't function in a relationship properly.
So I wrote a note underneath disaster capitalism, and I'll read it to you because my handwriting's shit, but the opposite of Clockwork Orange. It's a conditioning, the opposite of Clockwork Orange. So remember the character that had his eyes wide open. He had to watch a certain content to change his conditioning. This is changing mental conditioning. This is changing your identity, your personhood, how you think when you got this just shit fired at you.
Yeah.
Consistently, over months and months and months and months and months. And again, nobody, I would argue not many people can come out of that. Maybe nobody can come out of that unscathed.
And what makes it worse is that the exploitation of it, they had no choice. Many of them thought they had no choice. They wanted to keep doing it at the beginning because they wanted the money. They couldn't live without it. And that's when you employ thousands of people in the poverty-stricken global south, as they call it, you're literally holding them to ransom. Like, you create this feeling of need, and it's almost like like Sammer, like the first company that was doing it was named after this, had the same name as Sammer's Twitter bloody handle, and then Scale AI. It's almost like they're saying they should be grateful.
Yeah, and well, there's a whole Karen Howe runs down a whole kind of theory, I guess, that finding these crashing economies, these countries with crashing economies, and going, man, we need to go here because these guys will do just about anything. And unfortunately, you get situations like Venezuela where the economy is like crumbled, like the inflation was like, I mean, 10,000 million, whatever the heck it was. It was like, it wasn't working. They couldn't get food. They couldn't provide for people. And it's like, on one side, these companies are like, well, hey, we're doing them a solid, but are you like, if you're doing them a solid, like, let's pay them for what they're doing. Or I don't know, man. It's preying on folks, and that was
exploitation again. It's for, you got to scale. And quote, for all the work that the workers did to help each other, the platform pitted them in competition. Projects were first come, first serve. A task stuck around in queue only as long as it took for enough workers to claim it. This window between a task's arrival and its disappearance shrank over time from days to hours to seconds as more and more workers, including many Venezuelans in crisis, joined and vied for scraps of work. And then you have Fuentes saying, despite how much stress and hair pulling it was causing, she couldn't imagine leaving the platform. I like this quote. Fuentes taught me two truths I would see reflected again and again among other workers who would similarly come to this work amid economic devastation. The first was that even if she wanted to abandon the platform, there was little chance she could. Her story as a refugee, as a child of intergenerational instability, as someone suffering chronic illness, was tragically ordinary among these workers. Poverty doesn't just manifest as a lack of money or material wealth. The workers taught me. It seeps into every dimension of a worker's life and accrues debt across it. It's horrifying.
Wasn't there something in here? I may not have this actually correct, but I'm going to talk through it and keep me in line. And those in the chat, keep me in line if you're reading along with us. When some of these workers started using automated tools to help them respond to things quicker, to help them, automate the tasks in their job, they were identified and booted from the platform. But the platform is like, what they're doing is building a version of that for people more fortunate to use, which is like, that to me was like, dude, that's the whole, like, you can't win for losing kind of argument. It's like, you're going to tell them they can't use tools like that, but they are helping build a tool that does essentially that. The
irony.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, what else in this last one? This is, I know, guys, this is pretty dark on this last little chapter, but it's important to highlight this piece of the puzzle. Like, when you're using ChatGPT or you're using some of these tools, like, there are people behind the use of these tools that are getting paid nothing to do like
horrendous work,
mind altering stuff, like, in a bad way. So, wow. Yeah. Will that get you thinking twice on using some of these tools? I mean, I don't think anyone's going to not use an easy button because of that. But, like, I don't know. Can there be an accountability? Can there be I don't know.
Well, you said recently that you'd been using Claude more. Will this change? I mean, if the last week of thinking on paper hasn't caused pause for concern, I mean, if we don't do something, we can't really expect most of the population to do something. Like, it's pretty eye-opening is not the right word. know it transcends that. It's transcendental. It's
Well, it goes back to I don't know if you've ever read any of Robert Cialdini's books.
yeah. Persuasion, is that him?
Persuasion, and there's a lot of psychology behind
Persuasion.
helping someone. I think there was a study in that book where there was an apartment complex in a rough side of town where a woman was outside, like literally getting stabbed and murdered and screaming for her life, and everyone's sitting in their apartments thinking someone else has got to be helping. Like, I don't need to go out there. Someone else has got to be helping. And it's one of those things where we have to scale the help, so on the flip side, let's balance the scales, right? So the scale on one side is just, AGI or bust, damn the torpedoes. And then, on the other side, it's kind of like, how do we scale like what we're talking about? And the way you do that is like by people coming together and talking, and then more people coming together and talking, and more people coming together and talking. But it's a process, like we were talking with the enabled emissions folks the other day. These ex-Microsoft, super talented, technical, but also environmentally focused. It's a lonely road for them. Like, they're coming out and they're doing the hard work of saying, yo, forget about data center footprint. Look at what, tech firms are using AI to like basically do the opposite of all the stuff we're trying to do to save the environment, and they're doing it at scale. So it's like, it's a lonely road, but like, hopefully as you walk through these towns, maybe another person walks with you, and then another person walks with you. And hopefully we're creating some awareness in that, because it's not a popular message from a business perspective, but
it's not a popular message,
but it's an important one.
AI has a very happy smiley face, and but behind that face there is a lot more that meets the eye. Do you think that this is the end of reinforcement learning from human feedback? We've had a couple of guests who've spoken about that AI will increasingly take on that role itself. Are these the darkest days of this? Or I don't know if you know the answer to that. Maybe if someone in the chat can shed some light on that. But have we seen the end of the darkest days, or is the worst yet to come?
Man, that's a question to ponder. If anyone has any ideas, just looking at some of the comments in the chat, Ben talking about his AI use, had some preliminary conversations with. I'm not familiar with Libert AI. Libert AI. It's a decentralized project, which could be pretty interesting. Projects that are kind of walled off and built outside of things can set their own goals and do different things. So that's pretty cool. Joey talked about Cialdini. Saw him live years ago and recently in a Zoom meeting. Man, I would love to be in a Zoom meeting with Robert Cialdini. There's a lot. Man, I wonder what his take on all this stuff would be. That would be, Mark, that's your mission. Go get Dr. Cialdini.
I choose to accept it. Well, if Jory has been in a Zoom meeting with him, maybe he has his contact details and he can link us.
That'd be powerful. Rich Tella popping in. Thanks for joining us too, man. Good to see you.
Rich.
Hope all is well. Yep. All right. So how do we
say? I can't see his comment. What does he say?
Oh, he says, "Love you, fellas. We feel the love too, man." He's got to bounce.
He's got to bounce. Okay.
He's meeting
Rich.
with he has a meeting, and he's pretty sure it's with a real human. So let us know how that turns out. Let us know what your how you determine carbon and silicon. Mark, how do we land this plane, dude?
Check out Rich Teller's work. Anybody who's in the chat, looking at the chat, check out Rich Teller's work. He's the real deal.
There you go.
And a former guest.
An early guest. He's almost an OG.
First.
It's almost an OG. All right, so we move into part 3 for our next session. Those of you not listening live, if you have a question and you're reading this book, comment in the chat as you rewatch this, or send us a note, hello@thinkingonpaper.xyz, and we'll respond and have a chat. We're learning as well. This is basically open source Mark and I learning. So, you're seeing all the weird stuff, all the silly questions, all the wrong comments, but we're trying to get to a process of synthesis.
This is real-time learning, Jeremy. Real-time. putting our reputations on the line, putting our thought patterns on the line. I like it.
Same. Yeah, it feels good. Hope you guys are enjoying it as well. We have all of our stuff up at thinkingonpaper.xyz, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all that stuff. Mark, any closing thoughts as we land the plane here?
I really, really, really can't recommend our latest show enough. I think it's really, really, really important. We spoke to ex-Microsoft employees about the story of big tech and big oil and how big tech is aiding and abetting the extraction of fossil fuels. And when you hear about net zero by 2030, when you hear about we've got to keep it under 1.5 degrees, when we hear about this shift to sustainable green energy, it is going in the wrong direction. So awareness is the key.
Exponentially in the wrong direction.
We're digging ourselves a very, very, very big and dark hole, which if we don't start filling that hole very, very soon, it's going to be too deep to get out of.
There you have it. Well, food for thought, guys. Hope everyone has a great weekend.
Don't have nightmares.
Thinkingonpaper.xyz. I'm Jeremy. This is Mark. Be curious. Stay disruptive.